When learning to work on your bike, there are some things that you can get wrong. These are the top 10 most common maintenance mistakes. Getting chain lube onto the rear disc. Is your brake howling or not working very well at all? It's really common for people to spray lube onto their chain and for it to overspray onto that rear rotor and get into the pads. Be careful about where you spray oil onto the chain. If you're using the squeezy bottles of lube, down here by the rear mech is fine, just dropping it down and into the links, spinning the pedals backwards. If I'm using spray lube, I'll go much further up towards the cranks and actually spray it in towards that rear tyre, like so. Being careful of wind direction, obviously, and then I'll just wipe any excess off that rim and tyre with an oily rag. Not correctly setting the limit screws on your rear mech. They actually determine how far the mech moves up and down the cassette. They actually don't have anything to do with the shifting. And if you haven't set them tight enough, then your mech can move too far, the chain can come down and damage the frame inside here, scratch it, or worse than that, the chain can go up and over the back of the cassette and into the wheel. Sometimes by over shifting, but sometimes just by actually giving that mech a whack. If the limit screws are set correctly, that's going to give you the best chance of that mech not going into the rear wheel and damaging that. Over tightening bolts. I'm sure this is one that most of us are guilty of. You don't want anything coming loose on your bike, but sometimes you might not realise how some of these bolts don't need much torque at all. Make sure they're greased or thread locked, depending on the bolt, and you can actually get a torque wrench. Some stem bolts like this only need 5 Newton meters of torque. That actually isn't very much at all. This is one that I've done plenty of times, putting my tyres on the wrong way round. You can see on this tyre here, it's got a rotation arrow, and that can be different for front and rear tyres, but most tyres have this. See, this one has actually got a really good braking surface on the back side of the knob, so it's really important to get it the right way round. Double check that arrow before you pump it up, put the wheel back on the bike, and then realise you've done it wrong. Cross-threading pedals. This can be an expensive mistake. I've seen people ruin a set of cranks by winding a pedal in that's not been threaded correctly. So make sure the thread is nice and clean and then greased. Get it square to the crank, start it off by hand, and if it does get tight, double check it, wind it back out. Again, make sure the thread's clean and make sure it's nice and square before you really tighten them up. A seized seat post. If either your frame or your post is carbon fibre, then use some fibre grip in there. For anything else, use a little bit of grease. So for steel, titanium, aluminium, make sure you put a bit of grease in that seat post to prevent that from seizing inside the frame. Not checking your tyre pressure often enough. They can lose a little bit, so I check this before every single ride. Yep, that's lost a little bit. Tyre pressure is one of the fundamentals of bike setup, so make sure you know what you've got in there. Not tightening spokes. Wheels are very unlikely to fold dramatically or even get small buckles if they're checked quite often. You can take out small buckles, but at the very least, make sure there aren't any loose spokes in your wheels. Not having the correct tool for the job. Now, I'm sure we can all be accused of using spoons as tyre levers occasionally, but that can damage your rims. So invest in a toolkit, and if you don't have the right tools, ask a friend if you can borrow theirs or take your bike to the local shop. Last but not least, not doing enough maintenance. Now, modern bikes are pretty bloody good, but they still need some TLC. Start by washing it more often, and at the least, doing a bolt check. If you want to see more videos from GMBN, you can click just up there for the full maintenance playlist and click down there. That'll take you through to how to set up your suspension for maximum grip. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to click on the link, just that bubble there, to subscribe to GMBN.